Hello there, saber fans. Today I want to show you guys how I sand my blades. And I do this for all my blades. So I have some day blades here for this example, but I do this for clear blades, trans white blades. It really helps to diffuse the light around the blade. Someone had on the Facebook Crimson Dawn group had actually recommended that I kind of show this off, and I forgot that I had these unsanded blades because at the time I had all my blades were sanded. So I actually ended up finding these in my bin of various saber supplies, and I thought, hey, let me go ahead and sand those up and do that on video. And let me just do a quick comparison. So this blade actually is sanded, and you can tell that it's got less gloss than this guy right here. So you can kind of see that on the reflection there, and that's really the main difference. So when I turn this guy on, you can see that the light is a lot more evenly diffused. Now I've got natural light coming from the roof right now, so that's why it kind of looks dimmer. But I kind of did that on purpose so that you guys could actually see some of the internal bit. But if I switch this, you can see that outside is a lot more pronounced. It's almost got like a hard edge, which in a way kind of looks like it's realistic, which is pretty neat. But you definitely want to smooth it out. It looks better in person when it's smoothed out. Now, a quick caveat: this is actually a thick wall blade, while this is actually thin. So you can see the difference there. And it's the same thing with these blue blades. This is a thick wall versus this is as a thin. But I think that exaggerates that to show you guys on camera. The other thing is, if you'll notice, this tip is much darker than this one. And that's intentionally so. If you do get the thin wall blade from the Custom Saber Shop, I highly recommend getting the enhanced red tip rather than the regular red tip, because you see how dark this is, because this is a solid chunk of polycarbonate. So it definitely has more of a dark spot. You see that dark spot right there versus the, especially in real life, this is way less noticeable. So I recommend that, first of all. Otherwise, let's take a look at the blue. So blue is very similar. You've got the thin wall, and of course I have sanded it, so there's less of a hard difference between the edge and the core versus this guy, and it's very noticeable. And then same thing, this is the regular blue. I recommend, if you're going to get the thin-walled blue blade, that you get the enhanced blue rather than the standard blue. And that'll cut down on that dark spot. But let's take a look at the sanding. So what you'll want to get is kind of a smooth grit sandpaper. Now this is a piece that I've used, so you can kind of see some of the polycarbonate from another blade already on there, but it should not feel rough. In fact, this piece here, I think that's the size, if that helps. I'm not sure if it's the 216 or the P220, but that's, I think one of those is the grit that I have. But that gives a nice smooth sanding without leaving lines. If you get a heavier grit, it's going to leave lines in it, and that, in my opinion, does not look good. If you're really afraid of getting something that's too rough, go to your dollar store and get one of these little Scotch-Brite pads. You can get like a pack of 4, pretty big-sized pads for, $1. And this makes a nice smooth, and even if you're not going to sand your blades with sandpaper, even if you are going to sand your blades with sandpaper, I still recommend getting this, because it's really great at buffing out little dings and stuff from actually dueling. So highly recommend that, just to clean up the blade. But let's go ahead and get into it. So first thing that I do is, I just take your sandpaper, wrap it around, and just go up and down. And you see that it is kind of starting to scratch that a bit. And I spend a lot more time on the tips, just so that, you know, you get a nice smoother transition. And then just go kind of down the blade. One thing I do recommend, you might want to put a cap on the end of this, just to prevent any of the dust and stuff from getting in there, just because it'll be obvious that that happened. So I just go up and down the blade, back and forth. You can go around the blade if you want. I recommend doing that lightly. Just kind of, I'm twisting the blade, and that creates some vertical scratches. If you do this though, I recommend that you really spend your time on making sure that it's nice and even. And even after you've done the whole blade like that, I still recommend just going ahead and real lightly. I'm not putting a lot of pressure, you know, I'm not really grinding, and I'm just gonna do that. And now that I've got that done, I am going to actually go ahead and use the Scotch-Brite for two reasons. One, and I'm actually going to use this older piece because it's already got some in there, but it'll actually take off some of that extra material. So you got a lot of that sand, but this will buff it out, make it nice and smooth. Because we want to diffuse the light, but we don't want to, you know, have a lot of scratches and stuff on our blades. And then just take some of that dust off. And now we have a nice sanded blade. If you notice, it looks a lot more similar to that. Let's take a look at it in the... And you see the edges are a lot smoother than they looked like before. So you just spend time, sand it as you go. You know, if you see spots that you're like, okay, it's still a little glossier, or there's some spots here that I can see, just keep going at it until it's smooth, until you're satisfied with the results. So I've gone ahead and done the blue as well. And you'll notice that it still keeps the nice rich color. It doesn't have the same gloss, but it does still have a bit of a shine. And you see that outside edge is a lot smoother. And you'll also notice, so because we had the cap on this end, you can kind of see the transition from where this unsanded part and the sanded part. That's okay, I wouldn't worry. I mean, if it really bothers you, go ahead and you can sand that, but I don't worry about it because that end always goes into the blade anyway. And even when you have windows on your saber like this one does, you can't really tell that it's not sanded. So only the exposed part of your blade is really what you need to worry about. But you know, you can apply this technique to your trans white blades, thick wall blades, thin wall blades, doesn't matter. Just, you know, play around with, you know, trying to get some sandpaper. Go very light at first. If you want to start off with these Scotch-Brite pads, they are much gentler on the polycarbonate as well. So if you're really worried about oversanding, definitely go ahead and get some of this because it's virtually impossible to oversand with one of these guys. Usually the material kind of gets caught in the pad here, and it kind of dulls down its effect. So, you know, very limited reuse of these, but it'll protect your blade from getting oversanded. But hopefully that was useful for you guys. And enjoy your sanded, evenly diffused blades.